You get in your own way. It won't because the world doesn't allow you to. It will be because you don't allow yourself to.
Curious what each of you felt was the best business decision you'd made throughout your career.
I think.
Here we are.
Hello.
Ready to go.
Ready to work.
We got the wrong name tags on.
This is just a sample of our competence. If you think this is bad, wait till we really get into action.
A vanilla caramel. Is that all you want today?
That'll do it.
That'll be.
Let's upsell her.
Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. There's a lot we can learn from these two very successful billionaires, which is exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. I created a part 2 for you guys since you guys seem to enjoy part 1. Also, if you missed part 1, click on the top right corner or in the link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up for Bill and Warren. 100 likes and I will make a part 3. Now let's start off this video and learn about what Bill and Warren have learned from each other.
How has knowing Bill changed or influenced or enhanced your sense of the way the world works?
Well, I learned from him. I like to learn from all friends, and Bill happens to be a particularly good source. So that's the fun of having friends, Charlie. Yeah. It'd be hard for me to be a friend with anyone that I don't learn something from, and they'd probably get kind of bored with me, and I get bored with them. Who's that guy talking about stocks? You know?
And Bill, what have you learned from him, being associated with him?
Well, an
sitting on his board
immense amount. He wrote an article for Fortune magazine that I read before I met him, that it's not necessarily a good idea to leave large sums to your children. So that was pretty fundamental, and I remember reading that, and I was convinced that was right, and it meant, wow, now you have to think of how to give it away.
So Bill Gates wasn't joking. He's actually giving his kids only $10 million each. Although, let's be honest, I'm pretty sure they're going to receive more than $10 million.
I also remember Warren showing me his calendar. And,
I love this.
I had every minute packed, and I thought that was the only way you could do things. And, the fact that he is so careful
Let's see this.
about his
Can I
time.
show this to the audience? Yeah.
He has days
that there's nothing on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Some
show.
of the best.
This is the week of April, of which there are only 3 entries for a week.
Yeah, there'll be 4 maybe by April.
File tax
So
return.
that taught you what? Not to crowd yourself too much and give yourself time to read and think and...
Right, that you control your time. And that sitting and thinking may be a much higher priority than a normal CEO who, there's all this demand and you feel like you need to go and see all these people. It's not a proxy of your seriousness that you filled every minute in your schedule.
And people are going to want your time. And it's the only thing you can't buy. I mean, I can buy anything I want, but I can't buy time.
And so to have time is the most precious thing you can have.
I better be careful with it. There's no way I will be able to buy more time.
And living in Omaha makes that easier.
That makes it a lot easier. For 54 years, I've spent 5 minutes going each way. Now, just imagine that was a half an hour each way. I know the words to a lot more songs, and that's about it.
It adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really adds up.
Add up.
No, if you're talking an hour a day difference, coming and going, 2.5% of the person's work week, that means 40 years. You're talking about a year.
You see the math that he just has off the top of his head? Now that's the mindset of a billionaire. Funny thing about Bill and Warren Buffett's friendship is before Bill and Warren ever met, Bill Gates was very skeptical about meeting Warren Buffett. And here Bill Gates explains exactly why.
When your mother first said, I'd like you to come and have dinner with me and Warren Buffett will be here, you should meet him, you didn't seem that interested. Why was that?
Well, Warren, I thought of as somebody who bought and sold securities, which is a very zero-sum thing. That's not curing disease or a cool piece of software. And the idea of, kind of looking at volume curves, and it doesn't invent anything. And so I thought my way of looking at the world, what I wanted to figure out and do, and what he looked at, that there wouldn't be much intersection. And that's why it was so shocking when I met him. He was the first person to really ask me about software and software pricing, and why wasn't IBM, with all of their strength, able to overwhelm Microsoft, and what was going to happen in terms of how software would change the world.
I think Bill didn't want to come, but Kay Graham was coming in. He wanted to meet her. He didn't want to meet me. So he came in, and then we hit it off immediately. We had a great time. He had this chimpanzee to whom he was going to try and explain this technical stuff, but I was kind of an interesting chimpanzee to him, and we just plain hit it off.
So aren't you guys glad Bill and Warren Buffett became friends? I know I am. And now we're going to be watching an interview with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. I pretty much just highlighted the most important stuff. So make sure you guys pay attention, and don't forget, leave a thumbs up.
Everybody here has the ability absolutely to do anything I do and much beyond. And some of you will and some of you won't. The ones that won't, it will be because you get in your own way. It won't because the world doesn't allow you to. It will be because you don't allow yourself.
Who were your biggest role models, and what kind of a role did they play in your success?
You know, I had great parents, both of whom were involved in lots of interesting activities and would come home and talk to us about business or law or politics, charitable activities they were involved in. Myself and my sisters always thought about, well, what are we going to do out there? They had us as avid readers. Scientists were a group that I gravitated to because this notion that just out of their heads they came up with neat ideas, that sort of fascinated me. Quite a bit of the time I thought I'd be a mathematician or a scientist. It was only when I got to Harvard that I started to think of this all-absorbing hobby I'd had, computer stuff, which I just thought, okay, I got to get rid of this, and decided to do something serious. I started to realize, this is pretty serious. And it's actually more interesting and more impactful than going and trying to come up with a new theory in math. I had that dilemma for a couple of years, but eventually decided that computers really was a great thing to be involved with.
Instead of calling them role models, I call them heroes. If you tell me who your heroes are, I can tell you how you're going to turn out. I have been extraordinarily lucky. None of my heroes ever let me down. I mean, Yogi Berra again said you can observe a lot just by watching. I watched my dad. I had a professor, Ben Graham, back at Columbia, and had a huge impact on me.
So what impelled you to make a trip together to China in 1995?
It's a market that Microsoft had already been investing a lot, and we've upped that quite a bit since then. Although about 3 million computers get sold every year in China, people don't pay for the software. They will, though. It's sort of as long as they're going to steal it, we want them to steal ours. They sort of get addicted, and then we somehow figure out how to collect sometime in the next decade.
The funny thing is everyone thinks Bill Gates joking, but he's actually being dead serious.
I'd never traveled more than maybe the outer reaches of the county in Nebraska, and I just went and had a terrific time, and also confirmed my feeling that there were going to be a lot of Coca-Cola sold there in the future. I told everybody over there it acted as an aphrodisiac. I don't know whether...
As two of the most successful business people in the country, what role do you see for yourselves in giving back to your respective communities?
99% plus will go back to society. And that'll actually count everything that my family and I have lived on during our entire lifetime. We've been treated extraordinarily well by society. I'm lucky. Bill said if I was born a long time ago, I'd have been some animal's lunch.
So initially, Warren Buffett said he was going to give away 1% of his wealth to his children, but eventually Warren Buffett ended up giving $600 million. It's kind of funny. On his birthday, he gives away $600 million to 3 of his children. Later on, he said he was giving $2 billion to each of his children.
I'm wired in a particular way that in a market economy, big capitalist economy, lots of action, I'm well adapted for that. I'm not adapted for pro football. I'm not adapted for violin playing. I happen to be in something that pays off huge in this society. If I'd been dropped down in some remote country or in almost any other place in the world, I wouldn't have been worth a damn. I mean, I am here because of a tremendous society that surrounds me, and the fact that I happen to be well adapted to a certain part of it. And so it's all going to go back to society. And I know Bill feels very similar.
A great philosophy, not to mention the fact that passing along lots of money can be a bad thing for the people who receive it. They might not think so at times, but...
No, I've never put it to a vote.
Bill Gates does plan to pass $113 billion to a charity, but it also does happen to be his very own charity. And then Warren Buffett reported that he was going to give 80% of his wealth to Bill Gates' charity. That's also very generous of Warren Buffett.
Let the resources flow to those who use them best. But then I think they ought to give it back to society primarily when they get through. I do not believe in a divine right of the womb. I mean, I do not think that that if you select the right womb that you're entitled to do nothing the rest of your life. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm curious what each of you felt was the best business decision you'd made throughout your career.
I think just jumping in the pool. I've always enjoyed what I've done, and a few things have worked out very well. And the nice thing about the investment business is that you don't need very many. But you'll see plenty of times when you get chances to do things that just shout at you. And the thing you have to do is when that happens, you have to take a big swing.
Buying the company that his company is named after was probably the worst investment decision.
That's true. I mean, we went into a terrible business because it was cheap. It's what I refer to as the used cigar butt approach to investing. You know, that you see the cigar butt down there, it's soggy, you know, it's terrible. But there is one puff in it and it's free. And that's what Berkshire was when we bought it. I mean, it was selling below working capital. Actually, buying Berkshire Hathaway, buying control of it, was probably the biggest single bad decision that I've made. And then I made all kinds of decisions that have cost us billions of dollars, but they've been mistakes of omission rather than commission.
My best business decisions really have to do with picking people. Deciding to go into partnership with Paul Allen is probably at the top of the list. And then subsequently hiring a friend, Steve Ballmer. And having somebody who you totally trust, who's totally committed, who shares your vision and yet has a little bit different set of skills. And also acts as a check on you. You know, some of the ideas you come up with, you run by them because you know they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, have you thought about this and that? The benefit of sparking off of somebody who's got that kind of brilliance, it's not only made it fun, but it's really led to a lot of success. So picking a partner is crucial.
If you can change one thing in your life, what would it be and why?
My age.
The key resource you have to deal with is your time and how you spend time. I'm pretty rigorous at looking back each year. I even get my friend Steve Ballmer to come in and look at my schedule and criticize, hey, you didn't really need to spend time on this or that. And that's pretty useful because, you know, if I can get more time to sit down with the engineers, if I can get more time to get out with some customers, those are the things I just love to do. And you know, it just gets me excited, it clears my mind. You know, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm only doing the things that are important.
Starting a new company is very risky. How do you determine when is the best opportunity to start a new company?
When I started Microsoft, I didn't think of it as all that risky. I mean, I was so excited about what we were doing. It's true I could have gone bankrupt, but you know, I had a set of skills that were highly employable, and in fact, my parents were still willing to let me go back to Harvard and finish my education if I wanted to.
You've always got a job with me, Bill.
The thing that was scary to me wasn't quitting and starting the company. It was when I started hiring my friends and they expected to be paid. And then we had customers who went bankrupt, customers that I'd counted on to come through. And so then I got this incredibly conservative approach that I wanted to have enough money in the bank to pay a year's worth of payroll, even if we didn't get any payments coming in. And you know, I'm almost true to that the whole time. We have about 10 billion now, which is pretty much enough for the next year. If you're going to start a company, it takes so much energy that you know it better overcome your feeling of risk. I don't think that you necessarily, if you're going to start a company, should do it at the start of your career. I think there's a lot to be said for working for a company, learning how they do things. You know, if you're young, it's hard to go lease premises. They made that hard for me. You couldn't rent a car when you were under 25 at the time, so I was always taking taxis to go see customers. When people are first skeptical and they think, oh, this kid doesn't know anything, then when you show them you've really got a good product and you know something, they actually tend to go overboard and they think, whoa, they know a lot. Let's really do an incredible amount with these people. So our youth, at least in this country, was a huge asset for us once we reached a certain threshold. It took 3 or 4 years before we could go out into the normal sort of employment pool. But those problems that come with starting a firm, you better think of those as part of the pleasure, part of the challenge that is part of the excitement.